Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for showing up on a rainy day. Let's start with the chanting. Let's chant together. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhi Tamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may the Supreme Spirit protect us. May the Supreme Spirit nourish us. May we work together with great energy. May our study be vigorous and fruitful. May love and harmony dwell amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto all. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mriturma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto all. As you all know, after his illumination, Nirvana, Buddha was absorbed in bliss for about 4 weeks. Some say 4 weeks, some say 6 weeks. And then he started thinking, should I share the wisdom that I have received through this illumination with others? Then he thought probably this is too subtle a teaching for others to grasp. Then legend has it, he hears a voice which says, go and share your knowledge with others. There are people who are waiting to hear from you. So Buddha gave a second thought. He also pondered, yes, probably I should share my knowledge with others. So whom to start with? He remembered his 5 other monastic friends with whom just a few years before he was engaged in very austere spiritual practices. Very austere kind of mortification of the body. Buddha practiced this extreme form of spiritual practice, tapas, for 6 years and understood that this was not taking him anywhere. So he left his ascetic friends and went on to a different mode of sadhana. 4 types of dhyanas, and after the 4th dhyana, he reached his nirvana. So these monastic friends, they thought Buddha left asceticism, mortification of the body, because he was not a true seeker. So they looked down upon Buddha. They thought Buddha was lost. So Buddha thought, let me start with them. Let me start with them. At that time, these 5 monastic friends were residing, or you may say, engaged in spiritual practice 100 miles northwest of Bodh Gaya, from the place of Buddha's illumination, which was named at that time Ishipatana. Ishipatana, which is present day Sarnath. Sarnath, just a few miles away from Varanasi. I hope some of you have visited it. I have visited it quite a few times. Wonderful place, Sarnath. Historically important, archaeologically important, because that is where Ashoka's first inscription, and the pillar of Ashoka, which was the emblem of his empire for many centuries. That is the original one, is kept, long one. Also the wheel of Dharma, and also there is one stupa, a dome containing relics of Buddha. Then also around that place there are quite a few Buddhist monasteries, temples. So it's a wonderful place, Ishipatana. At that time it was a deer park. So that's why the sermon which Buddha gave to his monastic friends is also called the Sermon at Deer Park. It is also called Dharma Chakra Pravartana Sutra, setting the wheel of Dharma in motion. So he walked up to Sarnath, Ishipatana, and his friends saw him, and this is the same Buddha, Gautama, who could not withstand the mortification. But Buddha approached them, and they were at first reluctant to hear anything from Buddha. But as Buddha approached them, they understood from the countenance itself, Buddha is a changed person. And they addressed Buddha as one of them, old friends. And we find in his whole life, Buddha only once exercised his authority. And this was this time. He said, I am not one amongst you. I am no more the same Gautama. I am Buddha, the awakened Tathagata, thus God. And I have something to teach to you. Then the monks understood from the way Buddha spoke in his conviction, and also, as I said, from the appearance itself, that Buddha is no more the same Buddha. Of course, his name was not Buddha. Buddha is a title, means one awakened one. So Buddha, what I was thinking, if Buddha had not taught them any of the Four Noble Truths which he taught, which we all know, what he taught at the prelude to the Four Noble Truths would have been sufficient for centuries and millions to be the cornerstone of religion. What he said, O monks, we need to avoid two extremes. One extreme is indulgence in sense pleasures. Buddha himself had this opportunity to indulge in sense pleasures when he was a prince. He said they don't lead to anywhere. Secondly, extreme mortification of the body and mind, that also does not lead you anywhere. What we need is the middle path, Madhyama Pantha, the middle path. And this middle path is what? The eightfold path, Ashtanga Marga. The middle path is the fourth noble truth, a moderate way of living. We find in the Bhagavad Gita many definitions of yoga. One of the definitions of yoga is moderation. Yukta hara viharasya, yukta cheshtaya karmasu. Yukta sapna avabodhasva yoga bhavati dukkha. So one who is moderate in eating, in sleeping, in activities, and also in rest, for such a person, spiritual life, yoga, becomes quite beneficial. This idea of moderation we find in Bhagavad Gita, and it was also cornerstone for Buddha. Then he goes on to teach the Four Noble Truths, which were his insight from his spiritual illumination. And we all read it, right? We read it in fifth standard. In fifth standard we have to read in humanities the basics of all the religions. So we all know the Four Noble Truths. So I'll tell them very briefly, all we know, then we'll go into the details. First he says that, incidentally, Four Noble Truths, as we see at the end, is not a very good translation of Buddha, what is said by Arya Satya. Arya Sattva. It's not a good translation for Noble Truths, but we shall come to that at the end of the talk, why it is not. For the time being, let's take it Four Noble Truths. First truth is, there is suffering. Number two, I would not say suffering, I would say dukkha. Okay? Dukkha. We shall see why. Second, there is a cause of dukkha. There is origin of dukkha. Third is, it is possible to get rid of dukkha. Fourth, there is a method, there is a way to get rid of dukkha. Someone said, one philosopher, Madhavacharya, he wrote, in 14th century, he wrote a Sanskrit book, very short book, Sarva Darshana Sangraha. That is, it's a compilation of all philosophies that existed at that time. So he gives in very brief what all the different philosophies that existed at that time in India. There he says about Buddha just Bhavaroga Vaidya, a doctor of a physician of existential suffering. As a doctor, first say, yes, you have a disease. Number two, there is a problem, there is a root cause of the disease. Third, cure is possible. Fourth, there is a treatment available. So, acknowledgement of the disease, diagnosis of the disease, prognosis of the disease, and a treatment plan. So, Buddha said in that order. So, first truth, dukkha. So, dukkha is usually translated as suffering, but it is it's not a good translation, because dukkha has a wide connotations like pain, suffering, uneasiness, discomfort, then unsatisfactoriness, distress, stress, anxiety. Everything come under the word dukkha. But when we say dukkha is suffering, the image that comes to our mind, probably a physical and probably a tormenting mental suffering. Not in that sense, Buddha said there is dukkha. So Buddha observed that our life is pervaded by dukkhas. One is physical suffering or emotional suffering, mental suffering. Second, even when we are not in such suffering, there is always, some stress, some anxiety about the future. If not, then boredom or a vague sense of feeling that things are not as they should be. So, what Buddha meant was, inevitably, life becomes uncomfortable. Interestingly, very interesting, the origin of the word dukkha. Sukha and Dukkha. Dukkha's opposite is Sukha. So Aryans used to use chariots for travel, right? Chariots. And if chariots have wheels, a good wheel they used to call Sukha. Su means good, kha, wheel, good wheel. Wheel which is perfect. And a problematic wheel which gives a bumpy ride, they used to call Dukkha. So life, we may say, according to Buddha, is bumpy ride. It's not totally comfortable. There is comfort. There is comfort, of course, but we cannot say it was all through comfortable. It is inevitably it will become uncomfortable. So Buddha did not say that life is suffering or life is mostly suffering, but he said that this dukkha is pervaded throughout the life. Buddha saw people more or less are subject to their conditions, external conditions. So people were happy when external conditions were fortunate, were in distress, stressed when they were less ideal, and was in miserable when the situations were unfortunate. And he also observed there are 7 sources of pain, which he discusses in another sermon called Satya Vibhanga Sutta. Satya, that is further analysis of the sutta. As we see, the first sutta, Dharma Pravarchana Sutra, this first sermon and dear part, had to be later on broken down by Buddha in many other sermons. For example, in one sermon, Magga Vibhanga Sutta, he goes further into the 8 steps, the 4th truths. Thus, he goes on and on breaking down his first teachings. Okay. So in Satya Vibhanga Sutra, he says that there are 7 sources of suffering. First one is birth. Birth. So we would say, why birth is such a joyful thing? At least for the time being, the process of birth is painful to the mother, to the child. But what Buddha meant by that is, birth itself is the start of the process. So let me give you an example. Yesterday we went for a hike to Basi Falls, which is in the El Dorado forest. It was quite a good hike, steep. 3 falls are there at 3 levels, and when we went to all the falls up to the topmost. Overall, the hike was good. It was enjoyable, but there was some pains, of course, also there. At some points, the legs were hurting. There were a little bit of rain here and there. Some of the slopes were slippery. On the whole, of course, the hike was enjoyable, but there was pain too. So if we had not taken the hike at all, those pains we could have avoided, those small pains. So Buddha, whenever he speaks about dukkha, he not only speaks about the day-to-day experience of dukkha, but dukkha as a part and parcel of our life, of the process. Okay. And also by birth, it can be meant any new undertaking is painful. Any change is painful. Any new beginning may be painful. Second is aging. Aging is painful. We don't have to say that. We know very well. Aging is painful physically, also mentally. When we see we are losing our near and dear ones, then people whom we were connected with, they are living and change of career, midlife crisis, all those things. Aging is, there is pain. Third is death. Death of near and dear ones, and death of definitely my own death, which is not a pleasant experience. Recently I read the scientists confirm that indeed during the last 2 minutes of our life, all the experiences, major experiences, really flashback, come as a flashback for 2 minutes for the dying human being. So it consists of all the, of course, pleasant and also the painful experiences. So death is painful. Third is sorrow. Sorrow as such, physical pain, emotional pain, then anything we call it pain, that itself is a source of pain. We know it. Fifth is association with things, people, or situations we don't want. That is pain. That is the source of pain. We don't want certain type of things to happen, certain situation to face, type of people we don't like, and association with them is a source of pain. Sixth, separation from things, people, or situation we like. Separation from them is painful. Finally, not getting what we want, that is painful. Buddha looks details into them. And usually what happens, Buddha encourages us to look at the process called dukkha. That we should acknowledge. It is difficult sometimes to acknowledge to others and also to ourselves that there is dukkha. There is dukkha. Indeed, there is dukkha. So Buddha said that unless we acknowledge the problem, there is no question of getting rid of the problem. I have to first acknowledge there is the sickness or disease, then only comes the question of cure. So we may react to this question of dukkha from three levels. One is when we are really in suffering, physical or emotional pain. We are, for example, say now I am in, for example, let's say, or I am not so much in pain now, but I understand that I am anxious about the future. I have stress about the future, what is going to happen. Thirdly, no, I am happy, fine. Why should I inquire, investigate about dukkha? I am happy. When dukkha will come, I shall deal with it. The Buddha would say, no, the happiness that you are experiencing now, that is limited, first of all, going to end. It is not totally satisfactory. You are never fully satisfied. And even in the midst of all this happiness, so-called, all of us have existential angst, like boredom, or search of meaning, question of meaning of life. So these are also certain dukkhas. When we are in the first two states, acute pain or anxious about future stress, we totally get Buddha's first truth, that there is dukkha. There is existence of dukkha. This is the first truth. And why he says Arya Satya, Arya means not noble. Arya means there is existence of dukkha for a sensitive person. Those who care to look deep into life, they find that there is presence of dukkha. Life is unsatisfactory. Life is not fully satisfactory. Then second truth is then there is a root cause of dukkha, origin of dukkha, which Buddha found to be tanha. Tanha, that is craving. craving. He said there are three types of craving. Kama tanha, that is craving for gratification. Gratification. He says very poetically, seeking here now and there then. Seeking here now and the next moment seeking there then for gratification. And more the craving, more we have frustration if we don't get it. And more we are propelled to invest our energy, time in getting into that. And when we get the object of our craving after so much of effort, time, investment, which sometimes also may have conflicts with my other interest, but still we get it, we find that happiness it was promising does not remain. Okay, they have found that even extreme happiness does not remain more than 2 months. Extreme happiness like suddenly winning $1 million in lottery, that also does not remain after 2 weeks. It becomes then the new normal. Okay, and so more effort. We know this. It is so goes parallel to Vedanta. Vedanta says Vishaya, object. So any object, sense objects. So they say difficult in acquiring. To acquire you have to spend time, energy, money. Difficult to maintain. Bigger house, bigger maintenance. Finally, and pain also when we are separated from that object. So that is kama tanha. Then, but subtle tanha, bhava tanha, that is ego enhancement based on some identity. That is, I want to prove to the society, to others, I am that. I don't want to be projected as that. That is called bhava tanha. And interestingly, it is so rampant now in the age of social media. Interestingly, I found Scientific American conducted a study. The more colorful your Facebook page is, means someone's Facebook page is colorful, appears interesting, the more, in fact, unsatisfied the person is. Because the person in their day-to-day life is not so much satisfied. They want to, most of the time, project a happy life. I am having a great time. I am having a great life. Okay. And this desire to show is more in people who really are not living that kind of life. So that is bhavatanha. Showing, my identity, my digital identity, what I am. Bhavatanha. And vibhavatanha, that is the drive to get rid of unpleasant situation, things and events. The resistance to accept things that are before us. These three tanhas. So craving is a problematic because one is wanting things to be otherwise, resisting to accept things as they are. So things might be problematic, but my resistance to accept them make the thing more problematic. What Buddha said, the second arrow. In another sutta, he said, there are two arrows, as it were. I am hit by an arrow of suffering, but I add another arrow. That is how I react to that suffering. So how we add our own stories, our own resistance, which add to the suffering. Then craving leads to frustration at different levels. If we crave for something and get it, what happens? We get attached to it. We want to get it more and more. And finally, that is a key point in Buddhism. craving leads to future births. Buddha, in another sutta, speaks about Nidana, Nidana Samyutta, that is existential suffering. It has got 12 links, starts from birth. Okay, birth, then action, their result, their impressions in mind goes so parallel with Vedanta, which leads to further action, which leads to craving, craving leads to grasping, grasping leads to unfulfilled desire, unfulfilled desire means another birth to fulfill those desires. Remember, Buddha all along believed in reincarnation. Although he did not believe in Atma, he said Atma is not needed. Atman is not needed for reincarnation. Mind itself is the storehouse of all the impressions. So in that level, in first level, in our day-to-day level, we understand craving leads to frustration, craving leads to suffering, resistance, and also craving leads to a further existential problems called these cycles of birth and death. Okay. So the link that we have to, in these 12 links, the link that we have to take care of is craving, tanha. So parallel to yoga, yoga. If you read entire Patanjali Yoga Sutras, which revolves, the pivot point is raga and desha. Liking, strong dislike. This is what a yogi, a spiritual aspirant has to ultimately take care of. Because that is the link, weakest link or strongest link, I don't know how to put it. That is the link we can get hold of. Because that is what everything revolves around. So there is a second truth. First truth was inevitably life gets uncomfortable. So there is dukkha in our life. Life is part. Second is the root cause of dukkha is tanha, craving, which operates at different levels. Third truth is it is possible to get rid of dukkha. It is possible to let go of tanha, craving. It is possible to let go of resistance to accept things as they are. And it is possible to have everlasting peace and bliss. The letting go of craving, letting go of resistance to acceptance, these are called nirodha. And the final step, the full stop of all suffering is called nirvana. So cessation is possible, nirvana, illumination is possible. Nirvana, as you remember in my last talk about Buddhism, I said, nirvana means extinguishing fire, right? Extinguishing the fire. And three types of fire. Kama, dosha, moha. Kama is craving. Okay, kama is craving. So it's possible to quench this thirst for craving. Dosha, that is aversion to things. Another form of craving. I don't want this. That also can be quenched. That makes us suffer. Finally, moha, that is spiritual ignorance. So Buddha says spiritual ignorance is what leads to tanha. We don't know the nature of things. We don't know our true nature. That is why we are craving. So we find so much parallel between Advaita Vedanta and Buddha, and it's bound to be because Buddha was thoroughly influenced by existing teachings. He underwent his spiritual practices under different masters of Hinduism, yoga, and he was bound to be influenced by Vedanta. But what he did, he tried to get rid of the metaphysics of Vedanta. Atma or Maya he wanted to get rid of. He wanted to speak things which people can grasp easily, and that too in language, Pali language. He totally got rid of Sanskrit and spoke everything in Pali, the common language of people. So people understand dukkha, people understand grasping. So forget about Atma. Okay. So as we see in Vedanta, avidya kama karma. Avidya. First is Buddha says Buddha avijja. In Pali, avidya becomes avijja. Avijja means not knowing our true self. That is spiritual ignorance. Also, that called moha, not knowing, delusion. So, it is possible to ending the thirst for the next thing. Here, now, there, now. It's possible, and it is possible to fully attentive, fully aware what is here and now. And some might say that this cessation of dukkha, does it mean that we have to withdraw from the world? Does it mean that asceticism, monasticism? No. Buddha said, it is possible to take care of the world, to take care of the problems of the world, to even take part in a revolution, but at the same time to remain detachedly aware, without, he said, without defiling our mind. Okay. For example, maybe unrighteous things are going on, we want to protest, good, but the protest itself should not be a pain to me. Okay, that happens. I can still do what is needed to be done, but without being resentful. Okay, without being angry. So this adding anger, being resentful, and other things, what is called nowadays moral grandstanding. Moral grandstanding. We can still do all those things, avoiding these things, because according to Buddha, these things which we add to ourselves, this anger and moral grandstanding, these are the second arrows, adding more suffering to the existing suffering. So actually, being detachedly aware is not limiting, it is actually freeing. It's a freeing, it's liberating thing. When we are able to do whatever is needed to be done for the society and stand up for that, but also at the same time remaining detachedly aware. That is liberating, not limiting. So that is the third truth, that it is possible to stop dukkha altogether. Fourth one is Ashtanga Marga. That today I shall only present in general, and in my next talk I shall go into details, because there's a lot of things to unpack in this Ashtanga Marga. That is, these 8 aspects. It is not steps, it is 8-fold path, 8 aspects of the practice. So he said that for to this, there is a way, there is a path to stop dukkha. First is, he says everything sammak. Okay, sammak means, is translated as right. So it is more, correct translation would be appropriate. Appropriate. Okay, so for example, appropriate view. Okay, it's not right and wrong view, it is more appropriate view. If you want to have nirvana, if you want to go beyond suffering, it will be more appropriate view. Okay, so all these things are appropriate. What are those 8? First is right view or appropriate view. That is right view about what causes suffering and what frees us from suffering. Okay. We may say in Vedantic terminology, this is, can you correlate right view with Vedanta?
Discernment.
Right. And the Sanskrit? Viveka. Wonderful. Discernment, viveka, right view. Right view also has more deeper meaning, we shall see. Second is samyak sambalka, appropriate determination. That is willingness or intention to go to the right direction. Okay. First knowing, having a view. Second, going to the right direction. We have to have the intention, intention to move to the right direction. The appropriate intention. Third is samyak vak, that is right speech. So speak in a way which does not add to dukkha. That is, speak, be truthful, speak non-violently, and speak something which is beneficial. We see, in Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says to Arjuna that what is right speech? Anudegakaram vakyam satyam priya hitam jayat. So Sri Krishna says that austerity or spiritual practice related to speech is what? Anudegakaram vakyam. Don't speak divisive speech, which creates more hatred, okay, which does not give pain to others. Then priya, which is good to hear, hitam, which is beneficial, and which is also truthful. Okay, so it is packed so much. Samyak bhak, samyak karma, right action. So not engaging in actions which cause suffering, more suffering, or to me and to others. We shall see details later on. There are some activities which are unwholesome, which we should avoid, like killing, simple killing. Fifth is samyak ajiva, right livelihood. So livelihood, Buddha said that for monks there are some things they should not do. For example, monks and nuns should not take part in soothsaying and magic. That is not correct livelihood for monastics, and should not show a spiritual attainment they have not really attained. That is a wrong livelihood for a monk. And for a householder, he said there are some professions that need to be avoided, like dealing with guns, firearms, business of firearms, human trafficking, then business with intoxicants, 5 these kinds of things. Then samyak vyayam, right effort, appropriate effort. That is, put your energy, enthusiasm in the practice. Suppose I know everything what needs to be done, but still I am not moving. That is the first thing. So samyak vyayam. Incidentally, the word vyayam, Sanskrit, also means workout, exercise. Exercise, physical exercise, any mental exercise is Sanskrit called vyayam. So Buddha retains that word vyayam, that is effort. That is, it means these things will not be very pleasant to practice. Living a moderate life, a middle path, may not be always very pleasant for that moment. So it requires vyayam, workout, which may not feel good, but actually are for good in the larger picture. Then samyak sati, right mindfulness, that is to be aware of what is going on around and what is going on in our own mind with respect to my final goal called nirvana. Okay, with respect to final goal nirvana, how I am doing, being aware of that. What is going on in my mind? incidentally, this why I kept a separate talk for this, that all these 8 practices are so supporting to each other. Okay, so it is not that we start from number 1, then 2. No, each is supporting of the other. Okay, for Sammakdishti, it depends upon meditation, which is the last one. Samyak Sati we saw being aware of. Next one is Samyak Dhyana, that is appropriate meditation. This appropriate meditation means having a direct experience of the insight, not to take whatever Buddha said to be truth unless you experience it yourself. Dhyana, it has got 4 levels, and in Pali it is called jhana. In Sanskrit, dhyana they call jhana. Incidentally, Buddha in final illumination, when he sat for 3 days, he went through all these 4 jhanas, and only after the 4th jhana, 4th dhyana, he came to this insight, which he is sharing with others. That took him to nirvana. We shall see that what 4th level of dhyana is when we shall see in details. So, 4 noble truths. One is inevitably there is uncomfort, discomfort. Life is a bumpy ride. No doubt about that. Then there is a deeper root, craving. Craving operates at different levels. One is gratification for sense objects, which leads to frustration, or desire to show, project ourselves, or establish myself, or to have desire for recognition, which is really takes effort and also is not satisfactory. I just mentioned the book by Arthur C. Brooks, From Strength to Strength. Probably there, or in one of his blogs in Atlantic, he writes about that one of the least satisfactory goal to pursue is to fame. Fame, because fame, there are many reasons why, and he also says that in fact it is such a despicable thing. He goes on to show with scientific studies why it is so, that children should be taught from the very childhood not to pursue fame, especially in this in today's world, where children are trying to be influencer. Goal, ask them, I want to be a social media influencer. That is, I want to make a very successful YouTube channel or Facebook channel where I have thousands and millions of followers. He said this is the least satisfactory thing, because it has got no objective standard what fame means. Never ending game. Secondly, fame is mostly depending upon how people treating you, not how. It is not totally in your control how you can be famous. Okay, so that craving for fame, craving to establish myself as something, as identity, is also tanha. Okay, subtle level of tanha. Buddha says that tanha is problematic. Third truth is, yes, it is possible to first lessen the dukkha. Second, stop the dukkha altogether. And finally, stop the process of repeated cycle of birth and death. So, nirvana and nirodha, cessation of dukkha, means yes, day to day, immediate suffering can be lessened. At second level, it can be totally stopped through nirvana. And the existential process, the process of going through this bumpy ride, can altogether be put into an end, nirvana. And fourth truth is, there is a path, aspects or eightfold path, which followed with Shraddha, with sincerity, can lead us beyond dukkha. These are the four truths. Now, some other aspects of the truth I should share with you. Buddha said, after having given this discourse, that these four truths have to be realized in 12 phases. So it appears Buddha had, penchant for enumerating, penchant for enumerating and going further into details. But 12 means each truth has to be realized in 3 phases. Each truth, okay? 3 phases. This is like this. First truth is what? There is dukkha. So first stage is there is dukkha, knowing this. Second stage is it has to be comprehended. It has to be comprehended. Suppose I am approaching 4 noble truths. First I know there is dukkha. But I am learning from book or from a lecture. So that is the first. Second is it has to be comprehended. That I now, in the second stage, this is appealing to me, that I have to understood myself that there is dukkha. Third stage is it has been comprehended. That is, yes, I am convinced. I have taken the investigation. I have taken part in this investigation, and have understood. I have comprehended that there is dukkha. These are the 3 phases for the first truth. Second truth is what? Second truth is the root of suffering is what? Tanha. Okay, craving. Okay, so second truth is actually craving. Buddha said second truth is craving. Okay, this craving, first is to be known. Second, to be abundant. It has to be abundant, means I have to get rid of craving. And third stage, I have given up craving. Given up craving. That is the third final realization. That is my direct experience. I have realized I have given up craving. So also for the third truth, that what? Cessation is possible. Nirvana is possible. I know. Nirvana has to be realized. This is the goal now. I am in second stage, that I have to realize Nirvana. At third, I have realized Nirvana. I have achieved Nirvana. Third stage. Fourth, this is eightfold noble path. I know. Then next is I have to practice it. I am in the second stage, that I am practicing it. I have to practice it. Final one is I have practiced it. I have practiced it. So 4 noble truths are all interrelated in that sense. That first, as we find in Vedanta, first Shravana, we hear it, have some interest in it. Then Manana, I really inquire about it. Whether what they are saying, does it resonate with me, or do I also arrive into the conclusion? And finally, yes, realizing the truth. Realizing the truth through the dhyasana or meditation. So, eightfold practice becomes effective in understanding these 4 noble truths. So, it is not that it is a metaphysics and then it can be understood as it is. To understand the 4 noble truths, practice of Ashtanga Marga is needed. And this Ashtanga Marga is the middle path. We should not forget that. Middle path itself is the Ashtanga path. Then, second is, this is very important. Buddha never spoke about 4 noble truths at the very beginning. Whenever he spoke, Buddha's teachings was always 2-step process. First, he used to speak about do good, be charitable, refrain from bad activities, harmful activities. Then also teaching about that there is an afterlife, and afterlife depends upon how you live in the present life. Okay. when to some extent the person was ready, then he spoke about his second step was Four Noble Truths. We see in the life of the householder called Upali. Upali was a householder who came to Buddha and said, "Teach me." Buddha first taught in Sanskrit it is called, Buddha used to teach in two ways, Laukika and Alaukika. Laukika means this worldly. No, do charity, do good work so that you will get a reward in this life or next life. Alaukika was transcendental truth, was this Four Noble Truths. Okay, so Buddha first used, that's why you look at it, Buddha spoke first these Four Noble Truths. He was looking out for the monks, ascetics, who were already had some level of understanding about reality, who was already practicing some reality, who were already the seekers of the truth. Okay. Buddha says to Upali that I don't teach the Four Noble Truths at the very beginning. Okay. I make the student ready to understand Four Noble Truths. That is why it leads me to the conclusion that Four Noble Truths, the real good translation would be Four Noble Truths. Chattari Arya Sattvani. This is Sanskrit. Usual translation is Four Noble Truths. And as is the problem always, someone first translated it and it went on like that. Everybody repeated like that. But Peter Harvey, a scholar of Buddhism from Cambridge University, he first started asking this question, whether it is a really good translation. And I don't agree how he translated, but to me, it appears why Four Noble Truths is not a good one. Buddha said that the second noble truth, second noble truth, that is tanha. Tanha has to be abandoned. But we don't abandon a truth. Don't abandon a truth, right? Secondly, truths are usually related to statements. What Buddha is sharing, more we may say insights. And that too, these are insights for Arya. Arya means people who are spiritually mature. Viveki. So to all, these are not the four realities. These are four insights only for spiritually mature people. So I believe the better translation of Chattari Arya Sattvani will be four insights for the spiritually mature people. Four insights. Harvey goes on to give many reasons why Four Noble Truths are not a correct translation, but it is more pedantic. Let's not go into it. But I would think this way, that four insights for the spiritually mature people would be a better translation of Four Noble Truths. He translated it four realities, four ennobling realities. Four ennobling realities. That is, these are the four realities. If one pursue them, one will become a noble person. One will become an Arya. Okay. Finally, I would say that in Patanjali Yoga 2, second chapter, the entire Patanjali Yoga, Patanjali says in these four terms. Four terms, those who have read, like he says, Heo, Heo Hetu, Hano, Hano Payo. Okay. Suddenly we see in the second chapter from aphorism 16, suddenly there is a turn in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Patanjali introduces Heo, Heo Hetu, Hano, Hano Payo. Heo means things to be avoided. He says, what to be avoided? Heom dukkham anagatam. Dukkha. Dukkha, not pain, dukkha in its all-pervasive mode, stress, suffer, anxiety, uncomfort, whatever. What has not come yet, future, dukkha needs to be avoided. And what is the hetu? What is the hetu of this dukkha? He said, as yoga, avidya. Avidya, not knowing who we really are. Then hanu. Hanu means cessation. It can be completely got rid of. He says it kaivalya, the goal of yoga. That is knowing who you are, and illumination. Kaivalya is illumination. And hanupayo, what is the method? He said, viveka khyati aviplava. That is, inundate the mind with viveka khyati. Viveka khyati means the right kind of knowledge. That Purusha is different from Prakriti. That is yoga's, the basic thing. There are two realities, Purusha, the sentient, the soul, and Prakriti, the entire things, including our mind. And coming in contact is the start of the problem. Coming in contact, avidya. Avidya is the problem. So we see that Patanjali, that is yoga itself, was so much influenced by this four-way method of Buddha. Like a physician, Buddha said, there is a problem, but here is the diagnosis, here is the prognosis, there is a cure, and here is the treatment. So also Buddha says yoga. There is dukkha, reason of dukkha is this, and it can be stopped, and the method is viveka or viplava. So in the next month, I shall dwell more on this eightfold path. There are wonderful things to learn from that. Buddha gave one sutta called Magga Vibhanga, that is insights or analysis of the Magga, that's way, the path, Eight Noble Path. And there he goes on more on the details, like what is right mindfulness, what is right meditation, what is right ajiva. So we shall see in details and interconnection among them. All right, let's chant together. Om Madhuvata Ritayate Madhuksharanti Sindhavaha Madhirna Santoshadhihi Madhunaktam Utoshasi Madhumat Parthivagam Rajaha Madhudvau Astuna Pita Madhumano Vanaspatir Madhumagam Astu Suryaha Madhir Gavo Bhavantunaha Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sweet blow the winds, and the oceans give forth blessedness. May the herbs and plants bring us health and happiness. Sweet unto us be the nights and dawns. May every particle of Mother Earth be charged with blessing. May the heavens shower us with benediction. Sweet unto us be the noble forest trees. Sweet unto us be the shining sun. Sweet unto us be all living creation. Om, sweetness, harmony, peace. Any questions, ideas, thoughts to share? Yes, go ahead.
You have packed so much into this lecture today.
I know.
I was looking at some parallels between Vedanta, and I wanted to bring up the issue of ignorance, because in terms of the 12 links that take us into rebirth and cycle us around and around, ignorance is the first for the Buddha. And its great emphasis is put on it in Vedanta too. And in terms of those 12 links, they're contained already in Vedanta, in the knots of the heart, where it starts with ignorance, and then you have kama and karma. So there's a big overlap.
Indeed.
Is there not?
Indeed. As I said, Buddha was very much influenced by Vedanta. Okay. And realities, as he said. Yeah, avidya is, I better love to say avidya as spiritual ignorance. Spiritual ignorance, not ignorance, or not non-recognition. Non-recognition. Non-recognition is a better translation.
And in the two types, general types of Buddha meditation, of Buddhist meditation, I guess the first one is giving you insight into all of these 12 items, correct?
Right. Right.
And that's not so much a practice within Vedanta, is it?
Nididhyasana.
To look closely at all of
Nididhyasana. The third one, Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. Nididhyasana means you are meditating deeply on the truths.
Okay. And I have another question about the third craving. I didn't quite get what you said.
Oh, third craving is Vibhava. That is our drive to resist things. Our drive to resist things which we don't like. Situations we don't like. I don't want that. That is a craving. Okay. That itself is a drive.
I've been reading the Dalai Lama recently, and the third craving that he talks about is the wish to go to a certain loka, that you've accomplished everything here, but that you have this desire to do all of the right steps to get to the right level. Is that mentioned?
Buddha originally did not say so. Buddha originally did not say so.
Okay.
Okay. So, these things can be interpreted in different ways. Vibhava is a very, like Sanskrit word, it can be has many connotations. Okay. For example, bhava. Bhava is, as I said, Buddha originally meant ego enhancement as a particular identity, based on particular identity. But it also can be translated as to be born as a particular life.
But sometimes it's looked at as a separate desire.
Yeah, but the root is craving.
And I just have one last question. That's about compassion. And how a part of the whole practice was to look at oneself and to have some recognition of all of these things, but also to see them in others and to have that compassion.
Yes, it comes under right action. Samyak karma. We shall see that in our next talk. Any question or ideas related? Yes, those.
You mentioned the word, thank you so much for your talk, Nirodha.
Nirodha.
So is that where our work is now? Because I
Exactly.
have to forget about it.
Exactly.
Oh, sorry.
Exactly.
I'm not going to go.
Exactly. Letting go is Nirodha. And its perfection is called Nibbana.
So our applying these truths, applying these practices, that's what our job is now.
Yes.
And then maybe there will be moments of, transitory moments of lessening.
So listening, exactly. Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. All right.